Alright guys, it's Chatterbox Reviews. Coming to you guys my review for the pilot episode of Suits LA. Alright, so as a huge Suits fan, I have been looking forward to the premiere here of Suits LA ever since we got the news, that this was in the works, in development, and then of course when we heard that Stephen Amell was cast as the lead in it, which I really have never seen Arrow, like maybe an episode here and there, and I know he was big from that, but I have seen him in other things, but I'm especially a fan of his from Heels, the series that was on Starz for a couple seasons over the past few years. Unfortunately, it got canceled, and partially that's why he's able to do this now, but huge fan of him in Heels, and I think that was his best work that I had seen him in so far. I think he leveled up in my eyes in terms of his performance in that show. I thought he was really, really great. So anyway, so all of the buzz kind of going into this one, I am very excited, I think you could say, as excited as you could be, right? After how many years it's been since Suits has been off the air. But yeah, Suits is probably like a top 20 at the very least show for me of all time. Really got into it. That and White Collar, they were both on USA Network around the same time, so got into both of those and really loved both of them. And I watched Suits live, I think, since like season 4, I want to say. I think that's when. And then, every season I watch live up until the end there. So anyway, so that's kind of where I'm coming from this, or coming to this from. But I'd love to hear what you guys, what your experience with Suits is. I'm assuming you've watched Suits if you're watching this, but if you haven't, love to hear from you as well. And of course, what did you think of this pilot episode? Love to hear your guys' thoughts. I have been seeing kind of a negative response overall so far. And just to say it, I am maybe going to provide a bit of a counter perspective to that in this review. So anyway, so we'll see. We'll see, but I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts. And if you disagree with me, please, I'd still love to hear from you. But if you do enjoy this review, please hit like and consider subscribing to the channel as well. Would really appreciate that. And I will just be going over light spoilers for the episode. It shouldn't be too bad if you haven't seen it. But, if you really care a lot about spoilers, even in a pilot episode, maybe you might want to watch the episode and then come back. But otherwise, it shouldn't really spoil much for you. There is maybe a couple things I want to talk about that are, that would kind of spoil the ending of the pilot episode. So anyways, I'll give a warning there, but if you really care about it, maybe click off and then come back here once you have seen the episode. So in terms of this pilot episode, it is directed by Victoria Mahoney, who is I don't really know her that well or her work. She's done some episodes of Power, which I do really like Power when it was on, and The Morning Show more recently, of course, with Reese Witherspoon there on Apple TV Plus, right? It's Reese Witherspoon and who's the other lead of The Morning Show? It's completely skipping my mind right now, but another big actress is in there. Wow, I can't believe I'm forgetting that. But anyways, the Apple TV Plus show, I think Steve Carell was in the first season or something like that of it as well. Jennifer Aniston, of course, yeah. So she directed some episodes of that, so interesting to see. And of course, it is created, and this pilot episode is written by Aaron Korsh, who needs no introduction. If you've seen Suits, obviously, he's the creator of Suits and wrote, I would say a majority of episodes, or, a lot of episodes at least, in those 9 seasons of Suits, and directed a couple too. So yeah, obviously a well-known name if you've watched Suits before. So the premise for this one is it's set in Los Angeles, of course, given the title, and in this pilot we follow Ted Black, who's a former prosecutor in New York, and now he's turned entertainment lawyer in Los Angeles, and he has to deal with the fallout of this failed merger between his firm and this other firm run by his ex. So an interesting dynamic there. That's kind of the premise we're dealing with here in this pilot episode. All right, so off the top, as I said, I am going to be providing a bit of a counter perspective, perhaps, to all these negative reviews that I've seen so far. And don't get me wrong, I've seen some positives. I've seen some people who really enjoyed this pilot episode. But I'm just being honest. Like, the way that I came to this pilot episode, my expectations were pretty low. And I'm not sure maybe that was the case for some people, that they were expecting maybe a lot more than what this ended up being. And maybe that is, why it's more of a negative response. But I don't know. My expectations were pretty low. Like I said, I was looking forward to this, but I didn't really, think that it would be that good, or that it, certainly that it would not, be as good as the Suits pilot, for example, right? So in that way, I think this pilot episode exceeded my expectations. Yes, they weren't that high, but I think that still says something, right? It definitely was not, the worst case scenario or anything like that from what I was thinking it might be. And especially now reading the early reviews and stuff, I was really ready to kind of hate this and ready for it to be really bad. And I just completely don't see that, with this pilot episode. So for me, in my opinion, I think for network TV, this was quite good, right? Like, this was quite good. And I'll talk about this a little bit later too, but I don't know. To me, I think a lot of network, especially pilots that I've checked out within the last couple of years, just within like the last 6 months or so, right? A couple that I've checked out, they just kind of seem lifeless at times, right? Especially in the pilot episodes. And this was just something where, like, I think this had life. It had some energy. You get that Aaron Korsh writing, which I'll talk about later. Like, there's just something to this. There's an energy, there's a style to it, which a lot of other network shows, especially within their pilot episodes, they just don't have these days. And I've talked about this on the channel before, how, far network TV has fallen in the past, 5 years or so. And so to me, for network TV, for a network pilot, I thought this was pretty damn good, actually. I thought it had a lot of life, whereas some of these other pilots, it's just not there for me, at least in the drama category. I mean, comedy, mostly that too. I think it was, St. Denis Medical. I think that's also on NBC right now. And I did watch the pilot for that, and I thought it did have some life and energy too. So, there's exceptions, but I thought this really had some life compared to those other ones. Now, if you're, strictly just comparing this to the original Suits series, then yeah, it left something to be desired, right? But I think the most important thing is that I've seen a lot of people miss so far is that this is only one episode, guys. Like, this is just the pilot episode. Now, am I saying that I fully buy into the show and think that it's going to be as good as Suits by the time this first season is over? No. I mean, let's be honest. No, right? But I do think it could improve, or, this is just the pilot episode, and I do remember Dr. Odyssey that I checked out, again, like just a few months ago at the end of last year, where, the pilot episode, kind of rocky, right? This pilot, way better than that pilot also. But anyways, the second episode to that show, I thought was significantly better, and I said that in my review for it. So, yeah, I don't know. I just think this is only the first episode. Does it compare to the original Suits pilot, for example? No, right? No. That Suits pilot also, to be fair, was a double episode, so it was twice the length of this one. But, yeah, the overall writing, the characters, everything just seemed a little bit better, obviously, in that original pilot. And so in that way, yes, it leaves something to be desired while you compare it to Suits. But in terms of just the network pilot, I thought this was really quite good and probably one of the better ones I've seen, if not the best one that I've seen in the last couple of years, with just the network shows that I've checked out. So, and it's only one episode. This is only the pilot. So, let's hold our thoughts. My thing, and I think I've seen a lot of other people share this, is it's kind of the 3-episode rule. So that's what I do for almost every show that I watch, is I'll watch the first 3 episodes and then I'll decide, right? After the 3rd episode, then I'll decide. So, that's what I plan on doing here, and I think, it deserves that chance, especially after this pilot. I think it at least is worthy of the 3-episode rule and us giving 2 more episodes to it. So, a couple things I want to get into then. So, is it too similar to Suits? So I'm going to try to find this that I found on Twitter from Aaron Korsh, and I think this actually just provides a lot of insight to this discussion. So he did, and he's very active on Twitter, by the way. If you're a Suits fan, I'm sure you know this, and you follow him as well. But he did reply to a few people that I think he did like an AMA or something on his Twitter, and he did reveal that he tried making a show, a different type of legal drama. It was going to be a legal drama again, but it was going to be very different from Suits. That was his goal when he first set out to make another show after his work on Suits. But he said in this tweet, like he couldn't get it greenlit, right? And I mean, that's a whole other discussion that I've had multiple times on the channel here about how stupid that is, and just the state of network TV, of how they're so afraid to take any chances with anything. And I mean, that's crazy. Like a name like Aaron Korsh, with all the success that he's brought NBC Universal through the Netflix, residuals now, and Suits being so successful for 9 seasons of TV, and he can't get a new series, an original series greenlit. That's a very sad state of affairs, right? But anyway, so this is the reality. He could not get it greenlit, and so what he could get greenlit was a studio telling him, no, make it more like Suits. Basically, just make another Suits, is basically what NBC Universal told him. At least that's what I get the impression of. That's what he kind of alluded to. So yes, it is very similar to Suits. So I think if you have complaints about that it's too similar to Suits, or it's trying to do that, I don't think Aaron Korsh necessarily is to blame, because it really falls on NBC Universal, and the producers here at Play that pushed him to make a show like Suits. So anyways, that's just kind of my thing that I looked into this. I wanted to share that because I don't think he deserves all the blame, if any, for the fact that this feels very much like Suits, and it does. Now, I also think that even if he did get his original show greenlit, it would also feel similar to Suits, because Aaron Korsh, for what we loved about the original series, he has a unique style. His dialogue, very snappy, very quick, that back and forth. A quote in this episode is like, you need a touchdown in the 4th quarter. Who are you going with, right? It's like Mahomes or Kirk Cousins. Like, that's just such a vintage Aaron Korsh line that you would hear something along those lines of in Suits, right? And so he has a style, right? My only, the first comparison I would go to is Aaron Sorkin. I don't think he's as good as Aaron Sorkin, obviously, but it's a similar thing with the dialogue really carrying the load. And it's not necessarily the most deepest, reflective writing here. Yeah, it's very showy writing with the dialogue and just the way these characters interact. That is Aaron Korsh. And yes, he brings it here in spades once again. I mean, even some of these lines of dialogue are like the same lines that were voiced by Harvey and Mike and Lewis and, the characters in the original series. So, yes, it does seem very similar to Suits, because we have, of course, Aaron Korsh, who wrote a lot of Suits and created the show, also writing this one, but also because the studio pushed him to do that. So if that's a problem. You wanted to see something brand new. You wanted to see something else. I don't think you're going to really see it here, right? And the title does say Suits LA, right? So it is going to be very much in the vein of the original series, I think, going forward. And that's pretty clear in this pilot episode. Now, of course, the setting is different. Los Angeles, we've already seen a cameo in this episode, or 2 cameos, right? John Amos and is it Vanessa Hudgens? Or Victoria Justice. I think I always mix up the two. No, it's Victoria Justice, I think. Anyway, so then we got a couple cameos here. So we're going to see a little bit of that, right, with the Los Angeles, that kind of style, that kind of angle with real life cameos and stuff, which we obviously did not see in Suits. But the main difference here, besides that, is we don't have kind of the buddy, almost like a buddy cop, but buddy lawyer dynamic in this show in the same way that Suits did with Mike and Harvey. This show is very much a singular lead, character study almost of the character of Ted Black, played by Stephen Amell, right? He is our lead. Of course, we have other side characters, like Erica, Rick, and Stuart, in this main cast in this pilot episode. But it is very much Ted Black. There's no co-lead. There's no buddy to him. And that's, to me, I'll get into this, but I actually kind of thought that Stuart, Josh McDermott's character, would be the kind of buddy dynamic, and they would just play out that same dynamic in this show. That's actually what I thought going into it, and what I really liked is they subverted that in this episode. So yeah, very clear that it's just a solo lead show going forward, and it is just focused on Ted Black. We don't get that Mike and Harvey dynamic in this show. So I think that's fine, right? Like, that's a big difference between the two shows. So that's kind of what it is. And if you liked, the buddy dynamic, yeah, I mean, you're probably going to miss that a lot in this show. But if you wanted to see something new, maybe this will help in that department as well. So to me, and don't hate on me, but I think Ted Black is already significantly more of a, deeper, or just has more depth as a character than what Harvey Specter did in the pilot of Suits. Now, to be clear, just in the pilot, obviously they do some great stuff with Harvey as the show goes on, especially the stuff with the therapist and his past problems and kind of getting into that and how that affects his life. And they did a really good job with that. That was some of my favorite stuff in the original series. But I did watch the pilot of Suits not that long ago and did a review of it on the channel, actually. I'll probably try to link that with this one. But I watched that pilot. Like, Harvey is a very one-dimensional kind of cliche character. He's great, obviously, but he is in that pilot episode. And this Ted Black character is, I mean, we get multiple flashbacks. We're getting a lot of development for him. We get, his dad is already in this episode. Like, there's just so much more to Ted Black than there is of Harvey Specter in this pilot. And so, to me, I think that's a big difference. Now, you could also say that, yeah, there was a lot to Mike in the pilot episode. And so there you could definitely compare Mike Ross with Ted Black. But in the way that people are comparing him to Harvey a lot, after this pilot, I think Ted Black is just a way deeper character to this point so far, and really establishes what I just said of that solo lead, that singular character that we're going to be following here. So I think it laid enough groundwork for that character in this pilot episode, but also left a little, or a lot actually, to be still explored, right, in the show going forward. So I thought it was actually like the perfect amount, really. Obviously, yeah, some of the flashbacks and this stuff doesn't make a lot of sense. Who is Samantha? Like, who is his ex? And how did that relationship feel? Like, you have so many questions, but I think that's fine. Like, that's fine for a pilot episode to raise a bunch of questions and then have you interested. And then, as the show goes on, we'll get more and more answers to those questions. So, I thought it was just enough, really, to get the idea of what he has been through, right? And, some of his problems. And then obviously leaves a lot of questions as well, a lot of mystery there. And so we're going to go into that. I've heard in the early reviews and all that stuff that the flashbacks continue for quite a few episodes from what people have seen. So obviously that is going to be the main focal point of the show with the character of Ted Black. So I will say some of the flashbacks at the very beginning of the pilot were a little jarring to me, especially like the first sequence of the episode. I thought was a little bit rough. But then once you get past, I would say, like the 10-minute mark of this pilot episode, I thought it really kind of smoothed out and really got better in that way. So yeah, I like the character of Ted Black so far. I really do. I think Stephen Amell is pretty great. I think, not as good as what he did in Heels, obviously, so far. But I think he was good. I really do. I think he was great. Some of the more emotional moments towards the end of the episode, I thought he was really great in. I thought Brian Greenberg, who is Rick, was actually a standout as well. Lex Scott Davis, I thought, was pretty good. Josh McDermott, I thought, was pretty good. Big fan of his from Walking Dead, so maybe I'm a little biased there, but I thought he was good. I thought all the acting was good. I mean, it wasn't great, it wasn't insane, but I thought it was just good for, what was needed here. And I think Stephen Amell will even get better as it goes on. So another thing I want to talk about here is I saw a lot of complaints about the pacing of this pilot episode, about, some people saying it feels more like a finale episode than a pilot episode. And I would agree with you, right? Like, that actually, it does make sense. A lot of the dynamics and stuff that plays out in this pilot, you would probably see in like a finale of Suits. Like, even we probably literally did see some of these dynamics play out in a finale of Suits, or maybe multiple finales. Now, so this is where I'll get into a little bit of spoilers about some stuff in the episode, but to me, I didn't have as much of a problem with this, to be honest, because the way I felt about this is his partner Stuart betraying him is the inciting incident of the show. Like, I saw some people saying how, you know, like we kind of just jumped into things and we don't really know the dynamic, you know, with Stuart and these characters, and all of a sudden, you know, this happens, right? But to me, it's less about, you know, getting to know these characters or, you know, knowing their dynamics and stuff. Like, no, this is just the inciting incident of the story. Is that Stuart, they've been partners for a while, he betrays him, the merger doesn't go through, and now the rest of at least this first season is Ted dealing with the fallout of this inciting incident, right? And also Rick leaving the firm, right? And going to be with Stuart, I'm assuming is what happens there, right? So that's kind of what is going on, and that, you know, Ted's going to have to deal with that going forward. So I don't know. I didn't see a problem with this as much. I thought we will learn more about their backstory as we go, right, in the season. I didn't, you know, feel like that was missing. There were some lines also when Stuart and him are talking that we learn a very brief, you know, little bit about them, that they've been working together for about 12 years. There's a relationship there. Even that scene when they were out with dinner, I thought was established that well enough. So I don't know. I thought it was okay. I thought, you know, if you see this pilot as an inciting incident type of situation, and then the rest of the show playing out after this, it feels more like that beginning of a story and less of the end of a story. So, yeah, I don't know. I thought this was okay. And I will also say it's just kind of nice to not just do the traditional network pilot approach to me, whereas I would agree with people, like, this did feel different than a lot of other pilots do. And again, like, I understand if that completely threw you off of what's going on here, but I think if you just accept that, okay, this is the start of the show, now it's almost like a mystery box show to me. Like, that's what I got out of this pilot, is that they're trying to set up this kind of thing that happens, right? You see it, they show it to you in the pilot, and then the rest of the season, or the rest of the show in some cases, is them answering these questions, right? How did this happen? Why does Stuart betray him? You know, what led up to this? And what is his ex, what's her role in this? Like, it's trying to unravel this kind of mystery as we go. Now, of course, I could be completely wrong. Like, maybe this is, the rest of the season, they don't give that many answers and we're just left confused. Like, that's completely possible. But to me, that's the way I saw this pilot. And I think it's an interesting approach, right? It's not the traditional approach to these pilot episodes. Instead, it's kind of this thing of, okay, here's the situation, and let's, see how it played out in, the following episodes. Whereas usually it's, let's see how this plays out, and then the event happens at the end of the pilot episode. So, I don't know. I thought it was okay. I thought it was kind of nice to see something different. But again, I could be completely wrong in future episodes, and maybe, this was just, kind of half-baked, and maybe they won't give enough answers to satisfy us. So, I don't know. It's just the pilot episode, but I thought this was okay. I thought it was kind of nice to just jump right into things here. And then I also want to say I enjoyed both of the twists of this episode. I thought they actually worked pretty effectively. Like I already talked about, Stuart betraying Ted was actually kind of a twist to me. Like, that was pretty surprising, because the marketing of the show, at least from what I've seen, the trailers and the sneak peeks and everything, like, I literally thought that Stuart and him were the kind of buddy dynamic of a Mike and Harvey from the original series, and that they would be, together partners, in the show. Like, that was the whole thing. And so to see Stuart betray him, especially the way that they set that up in the first, 15 minutes of the episode, that they're friends and that they're, excited to get into this business together, and for him to betray him, I thought that was effective. I thought it was a good twist. And like I said, I think the marketing really helped that, because it really kind of subverted that expectation that you had going into it. And then I really liked the twist at the very end of the episode, which I kind of picked up on before the reveal, but it was still a really effective twist to me, where we find out his brother, I can't remember his name right now, but anyway, so Ted's brother was not really there with him in his house there in LA in those scenes. He was actually never there. It's just Ted seeing him, seeing that almost kind of reflection of him, and still obviously harboring those memories. And then we learn in that other scene that his dad, he says had him killed, or let them kill him. So again, a lot of mystery around that. What does that mean exactly? But yeah, so there's obviously a lot of backstory with that about his brother, and obviously his dad's distaste, I would say, or kind of he didn't love him, right? He didn't love his brother in the same way that he loved Ted, most likely because he had Down syndrome. I think that they're trying to hint at that. And so anyway, so I thought that was a great way to end the episode. I thought that kind of packed a punch at the end of this pilot episode, of all those scenes of him talking to his brother, and his brother wasn't actually there with him. In terms of my final thoughts then, to wrap everything up, I thought the show has lots of potential as a new network TV show. I think it's quite a bit better than Pearson also. I did watch the pilot, and I think I watched about 3 episodes of Pearson actually when it came out. I think I even have a review on the channel for it way back then that I did. But anyways, I wasn't a huge fan of Pearson. I just think it was kind of lifeless to me. And this, to me, has more life than that. It has more energy, and I think it's almost just the fact that Aaron Korsh is also writing this, and he didn't write Pearson. I think it's that simple. Like, I think he's just a good writer, and so to see that, he just elevates the material even more with his kind of style and his touch here. So, I don't know. I thought this pilot was better than Pearson's pilot for sure. I think it has a lot of potential as a network TV show, right? That we're, invested in for the next few episodes here as it goes on week to week. But does it live up to Suits? Not really, right? Like, I think that's fair. Not really. It is the first episode, though. I do think it's still too early to tell. Give it at least 2 more episodes. But, yeah, I mean, I don't really realistically seeing this living up to Suits. But I didn't think it would, right? Like, and I don't think a lot of people thought it would. So I guess that's not necessarily surprising that it doesn't live up to Suits, or that it doesn't look like it will. But that's just kind of what it is, right? Suits is a great show. Like I said off the top, one of my favorites of all time. And it has a lot of fans. Like, that's just the reputation that it has. It's going to be so hard. It's such a high bar for Aaron Korsh and the team to match with this show. And yeah, I just don't see it quite living up to that kind of bar. But yeah, not that surprising, right? It's a high bar to meet. So anyways, I think that's the thing with this. I think if you go into this and you go into future episodes with this, you watch the rest of the first season here, and you view it just as, okay, this is a good network show. Like, this is just a good, decent, maybe you want to say decent show on network TV. It's intriguing, it keeps my attention and all that. I think you would enjoy this show. But if you go into it expecting, either something completely different from Suits, you're not going to get that, or you're expecting a show on the same level of Suits, I don't think you're going to get that either. So that's just kind of what it is. I think if you go in with that approach, I think you have a good chance of enjoying this. So too early to tell, though. Overall, I think, this is just the pilot episode, so we'll have to see how it goes going forward. I do plan on covering, like I said, the 3-episode rule, so at least the next 2 episodes, but probably more than that. But yeah, so I do plan on covering those episodes here on the channel. I'm not sure what kind of, maybe a recap I'll do, and then my review for them or something like that. But anyway, so stay tuned, and subscribe to the channel if you are interested in those reviews and seeing those, hopefully every Monday or Sunday night, whatever, I'll put those up. And love to hear from you guys on this one, and then also love to hear from you guys for future episodes as well. So stay tuned for sure. But anyways, that'll just do it for my thoughts on the pilot of Suits LA. Looking forward to the next few weeks here to see what Aaron Korsh and the team have in store for us next. But anyways, thank you guys so much for watching this one, and we'll see you then in my next review.